Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo is the latest installment in anime's long-winded trend of sequels that no one asked for. I know. Put the pitchforks down and take your hands off the keyboard for a sec. From catastrophes that unwind years of character progression, to shonen blockbusters that assume their audience has zero critical thinking skills, anime has a long history of sequels that fall short, or even damage the reputation of a once beloved series. Today, I want to talk about why these sequels exist and why they often feel so unpalatable. To illustrate my points, I'll use Modulo as a case study and reflect on how it trips over many of these same hurdles. To be clear, these generalizations will mostly refer to sequels. There's plenty to say about bad adaptations, reboots, and remakes, but I want to focus on stories like JJK, series that already finished their run and had a clear conclusion, but were later reopened for reasons that are usually a lot less artistic than they are financial. One of the biggest problems with sequels is that they're inherently lazy. Brandon Sanderson has some fantastic lectures online about building complex power systems, engaging worlds, and compelling characters. And if there's one thing they make clear, it's that writing is hard, especially when you're trying to engage an audience for the first time. Sequels remove a lot of that challenge. Instead of building a new world, authors can simply reuse the one they've already created. But one of the most exciting parts of starting a new series is discovery. Learning how a new world works and understanding the rules behind its power system is a huge part of what makes fiction exciting. Series like Fullmetal Alchemist, Attack on Titan, and Hunter x Hunter feel so special largely because of that sense of discovery. Hunter x Hunter is a particularly good example, because it feels fresh and imaginative despite Togashi having just finished Yu Yu Hakusho. That kind of creativity is what sets great writers apart. This is also where Modulo initially shows some promise. The introduction of Samuria suggests the possibility of an entirely new system, something that could expand the world in interesting ways. And to Gege's credit, there is a bit of that in the early chapters, but instead of committing to these new ideas, the narrative bails. Samurians end up functioning exactly like sorcerers, with cursed energy that's essentially the same system, just under a different name. In fact, the story leans so heavily on the existing framework that very little would change if the Samurians were just sorcerers from another country on Earth. The only reasons that didn't happen are 1, it would retcon the idea of cursed energy being concentrated in Japan, and 2, there needed to be an easy way to introduce conflict, which takes the form in the lazy plot convenience that Kalyans are essentially cursed spirits. So the outcome is that what could have been a new layer of discovery ends up reinforcing the same structure the series was already using. Not to mention, the introduction of an alien invasion only a few decades after the main events relies on an ungodly amount of suspension of disbelief. Those two tendencies, to reuse old systems without further exploration, and to introduce insane ideas that weren't foreshadowed originally, already kinda sets up Modulo for failure. But another sin that lazy sequels commit is cheating character exposition. It's no coincidence that so many bad sequels revolve around the relatives of the original cast. I mean, think about it. Why spend time building a compelling new character when you can just make them the child of someone the audience already loves? Boom, instant investment. Series like Boruto, Yashahime, Four Knights of the Apocalypse, and unfortunately JJK Modulo all lean heavily on this trick. Compared to the original cast, Yuka and Suguri aren't particularly interesting. Their main selling point is that they're extensions of Maki and Yuta, and while the story makes a few attempts to give them emotional depth, these moments simply aren't enough. Ironically, the most interesting characters in Modulo are the Samurians, and their most interesting moments happen before they ever even interact with Earth. In chapters 8 and 9, Maru and Cross navigate a corrupt government, introducing conflicts and stakes that feel so fresh and exciting. And Dabura and Dura's short arc is some of the best writing JJK has shown us to date. At that point, you start to wonder if the better story might have been the one where Gege simply wrote an original series about the Samurians. One more problem sequels struggle to avoid is the infamous power creep. By the end of most great series, the cast has clawed their way to the top of the power hierarchy through blood, sweat, and tears. Jujutsu Kaisen is no exception. But when a sequel begins, writers face a dilemma. It's incredibly difficult to scale the power level back down while keeping the audience engaged. If the new protagonists are weak, the fights feel trivial. If they're strong, they start stepping on the accomplishments of the original cast. So more often than not, the result is absurd levels of power creep that undermine the original cast's achievements. Funny enough, Modulo initially looked like it might avoid this trap too, since Yuka and Suguri start the series relatively weak. It even results in some pretty awkward fights early on, where they struggle against what would basically be fodder in the original series. But honestly, it was still a refreshing direction for a sequel. Then about 10 chapters later, the wheels fall off. Suddenly Yuka's a 10 shadows user, Suguri has a complete heavenly restriction, and Yuji is the strongest character we've ever seen. Cool. On top of that, Dabura casually learns reverse technique, curse technique reversal, and domain expansion in what feels like only 5 minutes. And at this point, we've officially fallen into the same trap as every other shonen sequel. Maki and Toji's heavenly restrictions and the 10 shadows technique were supposed to be exceptionally rare. Maharaga was practically unbeatable. Mahito was presented as one of the most terrifying cursed spirits in existence. But Modulo, in its rush to power up new protagonists, seems to forget that novelty is what made these abilities so electric and these antagonists so threatening. And that's the real damage power creep does. When everyone is stronger than the legends that came before them, with significantly less effort and sacrifice, the victories and power-ups that once felt hard-earned start to feel a lot less meaningful. All of that being said, my biggest issue with Modulo comes down to intention. It's obvious that JJK didn't end the way Gege originally planned, and the ending was generally received as underwhelming by fans. With this newest installment, I can't help but feel like it's attempting to retroactively tie up loose ends from the original finale. This is especially apparent in how the narrative revisits themes like the responsibility of the strongest and the long-running debate about ending suffering originally explored by Geto and Yuki. My issue isn't whether this approach worked, and let's be clear, I don't think it did. But even if it had succeeded, I'm worried about what it signals for the industry. It encourages the idea that companies can pressure authors to release unfinished stories like JJK, confident that any unresolved themes can simply be polished and corrected in a sequel. This is bad news for fans, who have to sit by as their favorite series are compromised by unrealistic deadlines. But it's also bad news for authors like Gege, who in extreme cases can even be hospitalized from exhaustion trying to meet these deadlines. The best works in anime are the ones that feel complete, stories that had the time to execute the creator's vision fully without needing a second chance to make the ending work. And I fear that with the success of projects like Modulo, this deadline-driven approach will become justified. It starts to feel less like storytelling and more like modern AAA game releases, rushed to meet deadlines, shipped in an incomplete state, and then defended with the argument of, "Don't worry, we can fix it later." Continuing with this analogy, I feel like Modulo is just like a decent DLC, when most fans just wanted the devs to make the original game without rushing. Now, despite my claims that sequels are lazy and they suffer from certain pitfalls, it's still certainly possible to create a good sequel series. In fact, many sequels take that time saved on world building and power system construction to develop new and engaging plot lines and character arcs. Manga like Tokyo Ghoul Re and Maggie Adventures of Sinbad both serve as great examples of this. And for a moment, it looked like Modulo 2 could have been a fantastic short spin-off. It's just a shame that it didn't seem to hit its mark. Before I close the video, I want to set the record straight. I don't hate Modulo. Sure, it suffers from many tropes we often see in sequels, but at the end of the day, I still had fun reading it. That said, given the thesis of this video, I hope you can understand why my tone is critical, despite my perspective on the series being more or less lukewarm. Thanks for watching. In the comments, let me know your perspective on Modulo and sequels in general. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.